What's up? I'm back. In this segment, I'm going to talk about Neptune in the relation to Venetian arts of romance and courting. I wrote a book myself, my first book, about 5 years ago, The Art of Comedic Macking, where it's basically was designed to help men with natural problems or insecurities that they will have when it comes to courting. So it gave them techniques, explained why certain things were the way they were. I was very satisfied with the material. When you deal with Venetian arts, Venus in general, part of that is love, and part of that is courting between opposite sexes. Now, in some ways, that is a phenomenon that relates to spirituality because yin and yang. When you deal with yin and yang, when you deal with yin and yang, you deal with two contrasting principles that create creation. Creation always takes place in two. So in a lot of ways, being able to understand what the opposite sex wants, is thinking, what it takes to, if they like you too, because in Venus, sometimes the problem with Venus is that sometimes someone can like you, you could like them, but you still have to go through a step-by-step process to seal the deal. So many dating experts have risen because of that. Because in the Western world, we just don't. It's whether you're because you're antisocial, whether because you're on the computer all day, whatever the case. A lot of people, especially men, because it's the man's job. You could call it chauvinistic, but it's just the way reality has actually evolved. The man's job to actually go out there and actually speak to the woman first, or to be the initiator. So in a lot of ways, sometimes there have been men who have developed techniques for other men to actually help them when they're on that path. And I think for the most part, that's very important because I think it is true. Everyone can use a little help when it comes to that at times. Like learning how to drive, learning how to fly a plane, learning how to shoot a gun. You need practice. And it's better to get it from someone who's already been there. From my perspective, though, is looking at the current, dating experts, ex-max who or ex-max who become dating experts, whether it's, people who were in max, but just people who studied it from a psychological point of view. There's many different types of dating experts. But I think why, in a lot of ways, sometimes the material is coming to an end or is crashing because it's Venus. And when you deal with Venus, no matter how by itself, you don't transmute it, it will be limited. In the Kabbalistic tree, Venus is associated with Nezah, which is the fourth Sephir, bottom, right? So it's the seventh Sephir, but the fourth from the bottom. And, you have obviously six Sephirs is higher than that. And when you deal with Neptune is the higher form of Venus. So in some Kabbalistic trees, Neptune is number one. It's Kether. So what that means a lot of times is this. When you deal with Venetian love, you're dealing with love and hate, two forces, right? Electrical and magnetic coming together. But if you don't know how to bring them together and hold them together, they rip you apart. So most relationships start in love, or what's called Venus love, and ends in hate. And most dating material just kind of amplifies that. They get you to get the person. They don't tell you how to keep the person. And if the ones that tell you how to keep the person, even that's a little bit too harsh because it shouldn't be about you keeping the person. It should be about you and the person evolving into something better, which is a big difference. That's why true Neptune is real love. True love is real Neptune energy, but it's more than the Venetian flow of the love and hate. It's almost in a sense Neptunian energy is Venetian energy, and which is love and hate together as one. So the seven elements of creation are in that. So when I say in certain trees, Neptune is Kether, which is number one, that's telling you it's actually holding together the other 9 forces of the Kabbalistic tree, which would be, in a sense, when you look at it, 9 being directly related to creation, sort of like merging those two different energies together as one and keeping them that way on all realms. So most of the time when people are looking at dating, they don't really realize it's beyond dating. It's more, any relationship really is more about two people evolving together into something better. In that, it takes a lot more than just keeping, finding ways to kind of manipulate them to kind of stay happy or kind of stay content. No, And true Venetian and true Neptunian love is beyond that. Both parties transform into something higher. So in a lot of ways, sometimes a lot of people in the dating community, when they write books, the reason why it only works halfway, it's because the world is changing. The world's becoming more integrated. The world's becoming more advanced. Can't run those games anymore, to be honest. Not that they're not useful, but when you use them and you only depend on them, understand this. If you really want to understand how matter in the physical world works, true matter in the physical world is based on the spirit. You understand? When you have the pentagram is the 4 elements held together by the 5th element. If the 5th element holds together reality, whether you know it or not, the 5th element, or spirit, we should say, would hold together love too. And any dating advice that doesn't address the spirit, you will crash. Now, I'm not talking about these Christian dating, and no disrespect to Christians, but I'm not talking about Christian dating instructors who bring Christianity into the relationship. I have nothing against Christianity, but if you just understand it based on the material level, it's going to crash too. It's going to probably crash more than a dating advice from, so-called dating experts. I'm talking about real esoteric philosophy has to be included in your dating advice. Now, it doesn't mean you have to get spooky, but it has to be intertwined with that for it to work. If it doesn't, sort of like 7 steps, right? You got to go up 7 steps. Love is on one side, Venus is one side, they both fighting each other. Get past first step, second step you fall. Some of you guys get past second step, third step you fall, because you got to climb up when 2 people are fighting each other. That's love from the Venus point of view. When you're doing love from the Neptunian point of view, you learn how to integrate those 7 forces in your everyday life, which would be the ebbs and flows of a normal relationship, and then it becomes something better. So in a sense, when you're coming from, all dating experts will be coming from the Venetian level at this point. So that's why the advice could work. The advice could work for 10 years, 20 years, 2 months, depending. But it will hit a point where it crashes because it's not teaching you to evolve and to take outside substances in that and integrate them into your relationship. Big difference. So Neptunian love has to be considered different than the normal Venetian arts that most people would practice. So when you look at a dating advice, understand, look at it as a means to an end for a time. It gets you from one point to the next point. But if you want lasting results, the spirit has to be integrated into your